kao na srpskoj slavi. To tako se jede samo jednom u godini, verovatno. I to 3 dana traje. Vama su slave, čoveče, 3 dana. Vi 3 dana jedete, pijete, jedete. Ono nije normalno, čoveče. Kod vas se na slavu i ne zove. Doduše, kod nas u Makedoniji na slavu ne zove, ali to je iz ekonomski opravdanih razloga. Kod nas i na slavu, kada hoćeš da uđeš u masonsku ložu, da ulaziš ono, ko vam je rekao za našu slavu? Morat ćete prođeti jedan malo testiranje, merenje pre i posle slave. Kod nas to što dobiješ, to ti sleduje, hoćeš da uzmeš drugo parče, domaćin reaguje, kao naš, ne, domaćin ovde stoji iza tebe kao moralna podrška. Ajde, komšija, jedi, Mico, salate ovde nestalo, ajde, komšija, jedi. One čaše ko magične, koliko popiješ, one se toliko napuni, čoveče. Nije ni čudo što se svi ko čep pijani na kraju slave. I svi dolazite i svi odlazite kolima sa slave. Da li je to zbog one vaše formule koje imate? Svi na kraju slave računate, ok, popio sam 3 piva od 0,3, plus 2 rakije od komša, koliko beše stepeni ova rakija? Puta 40%, sve to podeljeno za 1000 dinara ću dati panduru, u redu je, može još to, vozi, sipaj. Ja sad uživam na srpskim slavama, držim se i vaših običaja, kako ono ide flaša vina ide od kuće do kuće, to se ne menja, jel da? 3 dana se pre slave ne jede, jel tako? Ali prvi put kad sam bio na srpskoj slavi, ja sam se iskreno uplašio. Vama je na slavama izuzetno izražen rasizam. Vi čak i sokove delite na crni i žute. Rekao, ovi možda ima nekog pića kojeg zovu Makedonac, ne smijem da pitam, čoveče. Samo čekam kad će domaćin dođe kod kuma. Kume, šta ćete da popijete? Pa žena se uželela crnog, za mene žuti i za malog jednog Makedonca. Nema probleme. Mico, daj za kumove ovde Coca-Colu, Fantu i čašu vode. Molim lepo, kad vi možete voda, što mi ne možemo voda Makedonac? Mala i jeftina. Imate neki glupovi običaj da kad vam komšija donese recimo tanjirić sa tortom, parčetom torti ili parčetom proje, vi taj tanjirić morate vratite pun. Znate vi koliko mi imamo tanjirića kod kuće? Bože, sačuvaj. But, enough joking. All I meant to say that after Serbian Slava, I look like an app. From the outside, everything is just fine, but from the inside, chaos. So, the next person to take the stage is Mr. Petri Heiramo, so please give him a warm applause as he comes on the stage.
Thank you. I wonder if I get my slides up. Thank you. Also, in respect for time, I will put a time box. Something to help us all having a great day today and hear all the talks that we have in time. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about real teams. And I hope that it will be easier said and done. Okay. So I'm making a claim that team formation is much like a cooked spaghetti. It's, you can pull it, but you can't push it. Now, I was looking for a picture with a single strand of spaghetti so that the metaphor would be clearer, but then there was a comment, well, aren't teams like that mess of spaghetti anyways? So you can't take one out of there very easily, you can't put another one back in. Okay, that's a suitable metaphor as well. Okay, I'm going to start by explaining a little about a study or research that a website called gamercetra.com, which is focused on games development, not the games, but the games development side of things. And they wanted to find out what makes games successful. Is there some kind of secret source, a pattern that we could replicate to find out and to make great games? So they had a long questionnaire of various kinds of things. About 270 people, I think, responded to that, game developers of different levels and different organizations. And they did find something interesting. There was something that was 0.82 correlation. So that means almost the same as if you have this, you have a great game. If you don't have this, you can't make great games. And the secret source, as you can see, is the careful cultivation or an intentional cultivation of teamwork, effective teamwork. So essentially, if you don't have teams, if you don't have that respect for people, you will not have great games. That's a pretty bold statement. But the data does support it in quite ways. So what are teams? What are we talking about when we talk about teams? So there's two extremes of organization when we discuss how to group and how to coordinate people's work. One extreme is work group. In a work group, it's hierarchical. There's assigned leadership, It's very driven by individual work, and responsibilities are individually assigned. Communication map looks like a star. So there's one person, or maybe two stars, connected stars, or something like that. Very familiar way that organizations work. The other extreme is teams. In teams, there are no, the point is not single achievement, personal goal, but it's the shared goal that we all share. Behaviors are shared. We align the way we work, the way we behave, the way we talk and interact, so that the team works together. And the communication map is much more like a star, much more like a network where people talk to each other, if not in equal proportions, but everybody has a voice, everybody talks to everybody at some level. They work for the same goal. So that's the key difference, and I'm sure all of you actually have been in some kind of a team environment, so you can feel that difference. You've been in work groups, you know that, right? So when and why does this matter, that the choice of how we organize people? If we look at the space with time in one dimension and value delivery capability on the other dimension, work groups come out like this. They have quick ramp up, but they have a cap in how much they can do and what kind of value they can deliver. It's capped because it's the way it's organized, it is the sum of its parts. Teams, on the other hand, are something more like this. They have much higher capacity, and we're not absolutely sure, is there a cap to the value delivery that these teams could have? But there's one major difference between these two. The workgroup approach is quite risk-free. It's fast ramp up, but it's risk-free. As long as you know who's organizing it, what are their skills, what are the skills of the people, you can get that group of people reasonably well working together. With teams, unfortunately, because it's a social process, you run a risk. So that process can just ground to a halt, or it can be, especially if it happens in the storming stage, it can be, hurt feelings, anger, and so on. So when we look at team formation as a general thing, it's good to recognize it's a inbuilt part of every one of us. It's a part of human race, part of human psyche. I suppose it's, in order for us as humans to hunt something that's bigger than ourselves, we need to have that teamwork. We need to, get that level of commitment that people are willing to go to sacrifice themselves for the benefit of the greater whole. Now, hopefully it doesn't get to that in software teams, but, there are examples of team members saying, I'm not useful part of this team, I need to get out, I think you're better off without me. And sometimes they are, sometimes that's true. I believe that it's a natural process that once the conditions are right, it will emerge. It will happen. You can't stop it. And also, if the conditions are not there, you can't make it happen. Once this process is ongoing, then there are factors that can speed that up, can make it slower. So let's look at the three conditions. First of all, if there is no shared and voluntary goal, there's no foundation for teamwork. It's everybody for themselves. And also, I underlined the voluntary because it's not just that you come to a project, somebody tells you, hey, we're going to be building this next release of the project. That would be sufficient. There has to be an internal commitment to it. The second one is that I can't reach that goal on my own. I need to work with the other people, collaborate to achieve the outcomes. The third one, there must be some challenge, that the way we always work, the way we've used to working, I do my part, you do your part, is not sufficient. There must be some additional challenge beyond that forces us to face the fact that it's not sufficient and we have to come up with better ways of working. That's the process that kicks off the team formation. If these all three are present, team formation will begin, and conversely, if one of them or more of them are missing, the process will actually start reversing itself. So let's look a little deeper at the shared voluntary goal. So first of all, important element of that is project vision. In the game study that I referred to already, the single most significant element that correlated from people's reports to game success was clarity of purpose, clarity of vision, the game itself, what we want to create. It was more than 0.5 in and of itself, just alone. So that's a significant thing. Now, when we talk about goals, we have to recognize that there are multiple levels of goals. There's external goal, which is the given purpose for that team. It's the project team's, this project, this client, or this game, this product. That's externally given. That's not necessarily always the one that binds teams together, or it's otherwise not insufficient. So it could be an internal goal as well, something that the team selects for themselves as part of becoming a team. It could be, we do this better than anybody, we do this faster than expected, we use certain techniques, or we just want to prove ourselves. And some that unites them together. And of course, don't forget that there are internal goals to people, so the individual goals that individuals have. If there's no alignment between what's in it for me and what the team's purpose is, it's hard to get people's commitment and engagement for that goal. So all of these are important conversations as part of this process where you establish the goals and start moving forward. This internal acceptance does not need to be sort of a vocalized one. So a lot of times what you see is groups of people who are actually moving towards team formation in some way or another. They are aligning behaviors and so on, but they haven't really necessarily explicitly stated, like in sports team, like, yeah, whoo, or something like explicit team formation commitment. But it's something, a quiet, I like this, I want to make this work, I want to make it happen, and it grows into something that is significant enough that the team formation process goes on. We'll look at the reasons why this is so important a little later. And lastly, it should be valuable enough that it's worth doing, so that we recognize, we want to spend, we have one lifetime here. Okay, depending on your beliefs, you might have different opinions about that. But let's say that we have concrete evidence of this one. And, we make choices how we want to use that. So if we work for something that we don't consider valuable, I think that's a waste of this one life. But whatever it means to everyone, that's a different thing. I'm not going to go into that one. Now, anyone here familiar with Dan Pink's work on the book Drive? And he's been trying to understand the motivation. There's some people here, if we look at those 3 things he said that are most important for, it's a sort of summary of what makes us motivated inside, once the money is off the table. He mentioned that there's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So if you look at the vision, the shared voluntary vision, and you compare to those things, you notice that the purpose and the autonomy, that is the willing, are significant elements here. So already, if you think of how do you make people motivated, you want to look at the team formation process. On the other hand, if you want teams, you need to understand what makes people motivated. Without motivation, teams don't form, because it requires that effort from individuals. Right. Goal not achievable alone. We humans, we are like polar bears in the sense that we are masters of energy conservation. We don't do anything we don't think is valuable unless we're forced to do so. And of course, if you want team formation, you can't force things. So why team up if, I don't need it? So therefore, when you define the goal, you must ensure that that goal combines the work of everybody into that same goal, that one thing. A lot of teams, in practical level, a lot of teams may have that explicit external goal, but the way that the system works and the way that work groups work, they actually establish individual goals within that larger framework. And this is the assumption, sort of like combining these things allows us to reach the major goal, the explicit goal. But what we need is the personal commitment to that single goal. So if I'm the programmer, and my goal is to, get this feature done, can I do that alone? If I don't consider quality assurance, that I can just, once I think I'm done, I throw it over the wall, that's a very personal goal. It doesn't require anybody else. I can achieve it quite often. So the goal must be phrased in a way that combines to customer value, outcomes, never components or activities. Right, so the last one of the conditions, appropriate challenge. So if we don't have, if the goal is too easy, we don't need teamwork. If the goal is too hard, we get frustrated. Simple. So it has to be somewhere in that balance. And this is where this connects to the concept of flow. So every one of you has experienced flow. It's a state in which you absorb yourself, lose yourself in something that you do so completely you don't track time, you lose track of time, you don't get hungry, you feel that your brain is working at optimum. That's a great feeling, particularly software developers, but I think everybody craves for that feeling. And you know what? Teams actually have flow too. Now it looks different than the personal flow, which is internal to person, but it becomes something that is shared by the people in the team when they are working. That flow does exist there. We need that flow to provide us the motivation and energy to gel into a team. And if we look at the two factors that are most influential in the flow, well, of course, I mean, if you get disrupted all the time, you can't enter the flow. That's one thing. But once that is gone, the skill of the team or the group of people, individual, and the challenge that they are facing must be in balance. You can see the statements I made in the beginning. If it's too easy, no need to go into flow. You get bored. If it's too hard, you get exasperated, frustrated, and again, you don't enter the flow. So there must be balance. And when you think about team formation in the longer run, they may start at low skill level, so challenge can be easier at first too, in order for them to enter the flow. But as they gain skills, you need to increase the challenge. This is the reverse of what often happens in projects. In the beginning, the challenge is high. All the questions about what we're supposed to do, how are we going to do it, all those emerge in the beginning and we solve them. That's where the excitement is. And then once we have a solution, it becomes a matter of just cranking the project out. What does happen to challenge? Your skills increase, challenge goes down. All right? So it's no wonder that a lot of teams over time start feeling that, it's not fun anymore, we don't work together well, and we don't need to work together anymore because we know what we need to do. So you lose the team formation process as a consequence of that. Very typical pattern, almost everywhere I see it. So if we go look at the Dan Pink comments about autonomy, mastery, and purpose, you can see that the mastery is served by this challenge part. There's something in that project that people want to learn, and they need to learn, improve in order to achieve it. So, 1965, Mr. Tuckman proposed, based on his research, a 4-stage model for team growth. So once you have the process ongoing, how does it flow? What are the typical stages that teams have to go through? The first stage is forming. Forming is a stage where the people come together, they look at what they are supposed to get done, what are the constraints of that goal, and how they start discussing how they do it. But this stage is characterized by being nice. People are nice to each other. They are afraid of raising conflict because they don't know who the people are. And as a consequence, a lot of the things that the team needs to tackle, that is, how do we actually work together in order to achieve this, don't get necessarily resolved, or we lose information that somebody might consider unsafe to expose, personally or emotionally or whatever it is. Or it's just, awkward to say to someone, hey, I don't think the way you're working or this thing that we're doing is a good one. So once they get the courage and the safe environment to move onward into questioning these questions, they enter the storming stage. So storming state is a state of which, well, let's say anything can happen. So depending on the culture of the system and the individuals and their tempers and so on, sometimes this is not that noisy stage. People argue, yes, but it doesn't become very vocal. But sometimes it is vocal. It depends on personalities and how people react. And the characterizing element of this stage is that people don't come to an agreement. Or if there's an agreement, it is superficial. It is not owned by everybody. The team doesn't commit to those decisions. So there's dissent and argumentation that these things can continue. So lack of alignment is the characterizing state of storming. And as you can see from the diagram, that's where the performance of the team will likely to be at its lowest, because the argument reduces that performance from where it was in the forming stage. They spend time on that, they spend energy on that, and they probably don't even work well together so that they could get the things done that they would have done in a forming stage. But if they get to the point where they can make shared decisions and they find that alignment, they can enter the norming stage. The norming stage is then the growth of performance. It starts, of course, from where they were in storming, but as they start making agreements about how they're supposed to work, they start getting better and better and better. This is already a great stage. So when that goes on long enough, they enter the high-performing or the performing stage, at which the operation seems very fluid, they have very effective ways of working, and they can solve problems that would be maybe deemed unrealistic or impossible by a lot of other teams. A useful way of looking at that growth that I find is looking at the boundaries. What do we need to move from one stage to another? I call them conditions of advancement. So if we look at the forming stage and storming stage, I already mentioned safety. If we look at that list of things in there here, you can also see that the 3 conditions for team formation are on my list there. So we need to establish those. I guess you might say those come first, and then you need to get safety to advance further. But then the last thing you need is courage. The courage to still, even though this environment looks safe, but you still take the risk. It's not safety is not guaranteed in people's hearts. So the people need a little bit of extra courage to start voicing concerns. I suppose everybody goes through that stage their own way, but of course, creating an environment where opinions are welcome, and you have evidence that people don't get shouted at for voicing concerns or controversial issues, will play a role in creating that confidence. So once those are there, the team can move into storming, and will automatically move to storming. People start talking about things that matter to them regarding the problem and the solution to it. So I already mentioned that we need to come up with ways how we make decisions. So until we have a way of making decisions, it's hard to say that, okay, a decision has been made, and it's hard to say that is this a thing that we commit to? No, so I suppose every single team has their own way of making decisions. It may not be unanimous agreement that everybody is of the same opinion. It could be majority decisions, or 2/3 majority, or it's a part of the process, how we make that decision, that people accept that decision and commit to it, even if they don't agree. It's that commitment that is necessary for moving forward. Also, the teams, in order for them, because the commitment and those agreement-making mechanisms involve people, we need to have a clarity of who's in that role. The part of the argument could be, in this stage, is who's in, who's out. Who do we consider part of the team, part of the commitment, who is not? The boundaries also refer to the goal, that we have clarity of what we're trying to achieve, clarity of how much money we have or how much time we have available for it, and that also create the container within which the team works. The next thing, trust and respect. Trust is earned, but it's also given. And respect is a necessary part. This is how we treat people. If the people in the team do not actually respect, even if they disagree, if they don't respect, it's impossible to move to norming state. Either they crash here or never enter the storming stage. The last one I have on the list is acceptance of differences. That we realize that just because we're different, we can actually become more powerful. If we are all the same, well, it's easy to come to an agreement, but we lose on value creation. We lose on innovativeness. So therefore, it's very hard for teams that are composed purely of programmers to become teams, because they're too similar. The problem they're trying to solve tends to be sort of within that view that programmers can solve. It's not an open-ended, more challenging problem. You need cross-functional teams to generate real value creation, but also the real need for innovation and integration of operations, the ways of working and behaviors. So once we have them, we can enter the norming stage. Now, norming is a state at which the performance grows, and very quickly after entering the norming state, the team's performance goes beyond what would be expected of a work group. So therefore, one of the biggest dangers in this state is complacency. We're good. So we get happy about that and sort of relax a little bit too much. We stop improving. And, in and of itself, that's not so bad, because we're doing better than most teams already. But if we want to be really good, if we want to excel, we need to have relentless desire for relentless improvement, that we keep challenging ourselves even though we're good. We recognize, we celebrate how good we are, and then we challenge ourselves with the next thing. So that ongoing challenge must exist. Discipline. This is one thing that surprises probably people seeing agile teams, because opinion about agile seems to often be that, you can do whatever you like to. Well, there is one element of that, but if you don't have the discipline to make decisions and then commit to those and do those things that you know that are necessary for your health, the team's health or so on, well, you make agreements, but nobody does anything about them. That's not a recipe for high performance. It's a human thing to do. I know perfectly well what I would need to do. How should I eat? And how should I exercise? How much should I exercise in order to be healthy? Do I always do that? Well, not nearly as much as I should. Therefore, do I have the discipline to have a healthy body that is strong and powerful and it's never, really bad? No. I see the consequences. Climbing up the stairs, I see those consequences. The lack of discipline. The same applies to teams. If they don't have the discipline to do the exercise and practice and get into good shape, they never will. They might be good, but they never get the best. One of the things you need to have in order to have high performance is personal excellence. You don't need personal excellence to get to this point, but you need to develop that as a team so that each player can pull the sleigh effectively. And yes, you can grow it. You don't have to have it up front. You can have great teams coming up from humble beginnings where you have juniors and young people, but they learn the norming stage. They learn very rapidly. They help each other to learn. They challenge each other to learn, and they develop the personal competence. I mentioned variety of opinions, but this is where it really counts, because high performance is less of how much you do, but it's more of how good you do. What's the quality of the work? What's the innovativeness? What's the solution? What kind of solution you make? It's the value focus, not output. And without opinions, we can't solve complex problems. Without different people in the team. So sometimes it's actually good to challenge yourself and maybe bring in new people in the team just for the purpose that they're different. An important element. And the last one I'll put in is stability. So up to this point, it may not take all that long, and there may be changes in the lineup of the team, but at this stage, in order to excel, we need to have a certain amount of stability that it's the same people for as much as possible. Some changes here and there, but remember, when you change people, you reset the team formation process, because you need to recreate those agreements with the new person. The new person must create their personal commitment to the goal, and it takes time. And before you learn to play together, some teams never recover from changes in membership. So you need some amount of stability, or quite much of it. This is something management should recognize when they are trying to cultivate the culture of teams. And the last stage, conditions, when you enter the performing, it's no longer a question how do you get next stage, but it's more about how do you maintain this state. Without challenge, recognize, let's start from the fact that we have at our hands at this stage a team that is of exceptional performance in terms of personal capabilities, but also as the way they collaborate together. So therefore, let's go back to the diagram of flow. It's right there on the right edge of the skill level, performance level, and capability. If you don't have a very high level of challenge for these people, what do? They decide, we won the game, this is not exciting anymore, and the performance will disappear, or the team will disband itself. It will just self-select out of that project. So as an organization, if you recognize that you have a high-performing team, you must cultivate them by giving them further challenges, something that they find worth their skill level. Without that, the teams will disappear. This is one of the biggest dangers, one of the main reasons why these teams dissipate. Sometimes it is a factor of we've won the game, and it's a natural ending to the project, natural ending to the team, but sometimes it dissipates. The second thing is some amount of change. There's studies showing that if you have high-performing teams for too long, they kind of get stale. So you need some amount of change, some amount of new ideas, sometimes change of membership, sometimes change of goal to keep that engaging and fresh. And the last one is keeping wolves at bay. In other words, what if you were in a different company and you saw that there is this great team that gets these exceptional things done? Wouldn't you want some of those people in your organization? Or if you're a manager in some other part of the organization, wouldn't want those people? You know, they are exceptional individuals, they know something about teamwork, they'd be great in your organization as well. So the attractions from outside is usually the most significant factor in losing members and then losing the team. Of course, we can't build golden cages where we provide people with so much money or benefits that they can't afford to leave. Because, if that's the reason they stay, you've already lost them. You lost the motivation, the inbuilt motivation of those individuals. It's worthless to pay them the money because they're no longer worth it. So you have to build that desire to stay from those challenges, from the respect the organization gives to these people, recognizing that you're doing good work. Autonomy and things like that should be sort of the ways in which you attract people. So if we take that model and we go back to the forming stage, we'll look at what can a Scrum Master do in this stage to help the team achieve those things that we listed on the right: safety, shared voluntary goal, and the others. These are just a list of examples, but things like team space or communication infrastructure. Make sure that the team gets a good kickoff, where the people get to know each other, get to know the customer, get to know the clients, possibly, engaging them with the purpose. Run a vision workshop of some kind so everybody is aligned on that single vision. Then there's things like protecting the use of time that the people have. So try to prevent partial allocations in the team. Talk to your management to not have 20% or 50% allocations that the people could be full-time on the project, could focus. Without them, it's very hard or impossible to create a team flow, a team process. In storming, it's more about helping handle conflict. Now, I don't mean this, but that you go and start to mediate problems. The worst thing I can do personally is go between my wife and someone she has an argument with. If I go there, I have two enemies instead of, possibly two friends and, my spouse. So, you should try to find other ways of diffusing those challenges. Try to move them out of personal issues to technical issues or things. Provide suggestions like, maybe we can try pros and cons. Have we thought about this in more than just emotional way? So different kinds of ways in which the people could sort of maybe cool down a little bit, look at things in a more considered way. The teaching aspect of the Scrum Master role does still exist here for new ideas, but more and more we're moving to a coaching type of role. And there's other ideas: helping understand variety, workshop retrospectives, encouraging discussion, things like that, voicing questions, concerns about how to work, and so on. Norming. This is where the way the Scrum Master operates moves from training and sort of the basic helping into coaching. It's, the team already knows what they're doing most of the time. They can self-organize, they can take care of their daily routines and so on. So Scrum Master is not, some teams say at this point that we don't need a Scrum Master anymore, we're good enough. That's the danger that is. Sometimes it's okay, but then you lose the challenge and the observational elements that Scrum Masters can provide to the team so that they can have that continual learning and challenge. Quite often, Scrum Masters at this point need to go outside the team for read more books, read internet sources, go to conferences, all kinds of things that you could do to get new ideas. If I phrase it this way, the team already knows everything you can teach them about the basics of Scrum and the basics of operation. And it's just for them to adopt those techniques. What you need to be is 1 or 2 steps ahead of the team in systems thinking. What other things are influencing the performance of the team, but the way they operate. They'll take care of that. But you bring in things like change management in the organization. You recognize some of the organizational policies are harming the team. So you start working on those with management and others, removing those. Feeding hunger. what I mean by that is you remind people to celebrate on the things that they are good at, appreciate how they made difference, how they've improved from what they were, but then at the same time remind them that there's still ways to go and challenge them to think of things that they could improve and feed that hunger, internal hunger, desire, ambition to move forward. And then when you enter the performing, that's where the real challenge is. I mean, if you have a football team in the UEFA League, the European Championships, do you have your regular coaches or do you have the best coaches in the world? The players in those football teams are professionals of highest caliber. They already know how to play football. You are not necessarily, well, they don't need you to tell you how to kick the ball, but they need you and the coach to help them coordinate and help them improve the playing together part, and also maybe sometimes bring ideas how to develop even further as professionals. Sometimes you get all kinds of hoops and loops in the organizations that take teams' time. Keep those away so that the management, so that the team is not hampered by things that are not valuable for them to do. Sometimes you take care of those, sometimes you just try to read them, change the organization, remove impediments around the team. And then one thing I want to highlight here is if you get a team that is working at this stage, make sure that management of the organization knows this and that they appreciate how rare that is, that it's a jewel. And they should find out the biggest and the best challenges in the organization for this team to solve. They might be the only ones who have that opportunity. So if I start winding things down from details, I start summarizing things. So this is a wonderful formula for Scrum Masters and change agents to think about, but also product owners, team members, managers, and so on, about what makes us behave differently. The formula is behavior is the function of people and environment. It's very simple. Now, if we assume that the people are the same, which is fairly, how much have I changed in the last 4 years or 10 years? On many levels, not much. I'm 4 to 10 years older, maybe in a slightly poorer physical shape, more tired because of having children and work and housing under renovation. So, but other than that, I'm very much the same person. I didn't do enough exercise 4 years ago. I didn't do enough exercise 10 years ago. So people don't change all that much. So if we want to change behavior, change the environment. Anything you can think of that changes the environment in which teams work, the people work, from physical surroundings to the policies and beliefs and values and things like that that surround them. Those are the means by which you can change things. Not by convincing people to be team members. That conviction to, I want to be in a great team doesn't last long if the environment doesn't support that. It will disappear. So, last few tips, summarize this. There's 5 psychologists from Carnegie Mellon University who studied what makes certain groups perform better than others. They found that a lot of factors did not matter. For example, individual intelligence was not a factor that correlated significantly with the performance of the group whenever the task required collaborative work. What they found instead, that the social sensitivity that people have, and as practical thing, as a concrete thing, as speaking roughly equally, were much better predictors of team performance. So if you have a group of people where few people dominate the conversation, kiss team formation goodbye. It's just a fact. Those teams might perform well as work groups, but they don't perform well as teams. Second one from Google, they did also a lot of study internally because they want to collect data, they want to understand how things work. They have a lot of teams. They value team-based working. So what teams in Google are good, better than others? And they found the same as the Carnegie Mellon people, that actually people, who you have in the team doesn't matter in the sense that are they the best in the world? Even some teams that had the individual performers who were highest caliber did not work well as a team. And sometimes, much less skilled individuals perform very well as a team. Again, social sensitivity, the connectedness between the people, the ability to detect other people's emotions, talk in a respectful way, and psychological safety, so that we feel safe about talking. So those were the predictors, significant predictors of team performance, or explainers of team performance when you looked at it. That the way they said it, people want to come to work as themselves, not some role that they play. If there's no safety for that, then we only half of us at work, we're not ourselves fully. And you can't then commit and be a team member. So, I think this is the last page. Here, simple. I have to put that in quotes because on some level it's very simple, because you actually don't have to do much in some sense, but in some sense you have to make something that is not very common in environments. So establish the first three conditions. Make sure that the team has a uniting goal. Make sure that it's challenging enough. Make sure that it is not possible to succeed alone. Phrase it in a way that requires collaboration. Then, if you're the Scrum Master, support the team in that, recognize the conditions of advancement, support them achieving those in the ways that they do. You don't have to move forward in time. You don't have to look for next step. You need to get each step at a time. So support that growth and that process. Then, this is a very practical thing. Make sure everybody is engaged. There are inclusive techniques like planning poker. The value of planning poker is not in the number you get. It's not in the estimate. It's in the process of engaging everyone in that estimate, everyone who's participating in the team, and then forcing that all of them participate and communicate about their expectations. You can facilitate that in a way that, everybody gets a chance to talk. And through that, they create that shared understanding of who we are, how does each of us contribute to that, and we challenge those questions. We create a uniting goal also on the how level. Never, ever, in any circumstance, give anybody a signal that they are not needed. We have this exercise. You can be on the side, let the people who have much better understanding, let them do the circle, learn. We don't want to give anybody the feeling that they are not part of the team in any way, in any exercise. That is different from the self-organization of the team in the sense that they might, like designers might talk about the design, parts of that design amongst themselves. That's okay, or architecture. But whenever it comes to something that you organize, that the team should have as a whole, make sure everybody's engaged. Everybody knows the vision, everybody is part of the activities, regardless of their level of skill. And then make sure everybody has a chance to talk. And if you do that, the team can't help but start forming into a team. It's a natural human condition. Can't help it. All right, so thank you. That gave me 5 minutes. I don't know. How do we organize this? Do we have questions or just get more time for the next one? Which way does it go? Anybody know? Maybe a question or two then, since nobody's coming up here and taking me out of here. Joe, anything? Was that stupefying enough that you don't have anything to ask? Possibly. There's one. If it is an individual, so what to do if there are members who just have to have partial allocation for some reason that is unavoidable? If it's 1 or 2 members out of a, say, 5 to 7 person team, that's possibly acceptable. But if it's everyone, forget it. So, but then have the team talk how to engage this person in an effective way. That's part of the team self-organization at that point. And if you can talk with your management how harmful that may be, that you don't do it unnecessarily, that might be a smart move. Let's take another one, then we let the next persons come in. So what would be some other question? Do we have anything?
Yeah.
All right.
What if you can't challenge the team technically any further?
Okay, so what if you can't challenge the team technically any further?
Yeah.
Well, then there might be qualities like, can we do it faster than ever? Can we do it in half the time? Or can we do it without bugs? Or sometimes it is, would we want to explore some alternatives? Can we find technology that would deliver the organization exponential value over what we're doing now? So it's not the work they're doing now, but that it's on the side of that work. Now, that would of course require that, some kind of understanding from the organization that they're doing this, but it might be something that might give them a technical challenge. Then further way is to expand the challenge. It's no longer a technical problem, it becomes a value problem. That you integrate it with design and customer understanding and business purpose, and you challenge the team to think of that level, not just technical solution. So there's many ways you can expand, extend, and increase the challenge in that environment, and even in that situation. All right. So thank you, everybody.
Dame i gospodo, to je bio za vas gospodin Petri Heiramo, sorry.
Thank you.